Rain poured down like sharp blades cutting through the dark sky. The wind howled through the gorges, carrying away clumps of trees and debris, lashing at the small houses that were shivering in the stormy night. In a small village in the Alpes-Maritimes region, Pierre, a man in his 40s, stood by the window looking out at the raging Vesuve River. In all his years, he had never seen nature so angry. Lightning tore across the sky. Pierre shook his head, trying to stay calm. "We have time, but if the water rises again, we will leave immediately." But nature waits for no one. In an instant, a terrifying sound rang out. Boom! The whole mountain seemed to roar, and rocks and soil rushed down from somewhere at an incredible speed. A giant column of muddy water swept down the main street of the village, sweeping away cars, trees, and even houses that had stood for decades. "Run, Lucas!" Pierre shouted, wrenching open the door and grabbing his son. They rushed outside into the fury of the storm. The water was knee-deep, then waist-high. In the distance, faint cries for help rang out amid the howling wind. Suddenly, a huge wave surged from the river, washing away the only bridge connecting the village to the outside world. Pierre understood that they were completely isolated. With no other choice, Pierre carried Lucas on his back and groped his way along the cliff to find shelter. The wind was so strong that every step felt like a struggle with death. After nearly an hour of struggling with the storm, they found an abandoned house on the mountainside. Inside, another group of people were taking shelter: an old woman, a middle-aged man, and 2 young girls. Everyone was soaked, their eyes were panicked, but they still held on to a glimmer of hope. They wrapped themselves in blankets, warmed themselves by the flickering light of candles, and waited for rescue. For the next 3 days, they lived in fear, hearing the sounds of landslides, the sound of collapsing roofs, and the constant rush of water outside. On the 4th day, the sound of helicopters rang out overhead. "The French rescue team has arrived." The survivors waved, tears streaming down their weary faces. Pierre and Lucas held each other as the helicopter lifted them high above the devastated land below. Looking down at the village, now reduced to mud and debris, Pierre knew their lives would never be the same again. But they were alive, and that was the most important thing. Hurricane Alex may have swept everything away, but it could not extinguish human hope.